Kansas QB2, Alabama's Ty Simpson, has a pretty wide window where he'll go in round one. Just 15 college starts to his name. He threw at Bama's Pro Day Wednesday, then held a private workout for the Jets today in Tuscaloosa. The Jets hold 2 first-round picks, numbers 2 and 16 overall. New York also signed Geno Smith to a 1-year deal earlier this offseason. Mina Kimes, it is not debatable. The Jets need a long-term plan at quarterback. What is up for debate is when they attack it. There's a lot of buzz with the 2027 class. Should New York be in the QB market this year in this draft?
I do not think so. So the Jets have a tremendous amount of ammunition in the draft, right? 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a real opportunity with that ammunition to turn around a roster that still needs a lot of work. I think most folks, myself included, expect them to take a pass rusher with that second pick, but you also need help in the secondary, both corner, safety. You need more wide receivers. You need guards, and dropping a quarterback into that situation, well, to me, it would only make sense if you really loved and believed in the quarterback. And while I do think Ty Simpson has potential, I also think for him to succeed in the NFL, he would have to be an outlier given his stature and also the lack of experience, and particularly those two things combined. So I would say he is not the type of quarterback to merit, I think, making that leap, even though the rest of the roster needs work. And if I'm the Jets, I'm focused on improving the roster this year so that next year they can take a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right in terms of, the outlying characteristics that typically come with, first-round draft picks. Simpson doesn't possess those. I think the tricky thing here is the Jets, coaching staff nearly got fired after this past season. And, one of the ways you can save your job is to show some promise and some upside. And so I do think that with Geno Smith, coming into the season as their presumed starter, one of the ways you can kind of salvage your situation is you draft a quarterback, if in fact agreeable, like if you believe in him, and then he takes over at some point and you show promise. Because look, the Jets are more than one player away at any position to being a competitive football team. But if you're drafting good guards and edge rushers and things like that, and you don't have a quarterback that can show promise and play well, you're probably drafting the guard and the edge rusher for the next staff. And so that's just the I think the rub here in terms of what you end up doing. And I do think, with Simpson, just to kind of get it out of the way, because of the 5th-year option with first-round draft picks, and because I do think, with his experience or lack of experience, I do think having that is going to be important with whoever takes him.
Yeah, the inexperience here is the big concern. It's going to be a slow development curve. This is a guy who really only played 1 year in school as a starter, and the track record first-round picks at quarterback over the last decade for those 1-year players, not especially great. On one hand, you have Kyler Murray, which is a big positive, but Anthony Richardson, Trey Lance, Dwayne Haskins, you're looking Mitch Trubisky. You're looking at guys who were expected to continue developing at the pro level, but who did not. There's just a lot of variance that comes with 1 year of playing quarterback at the college football level. And so we see teams typically prefer those multi-year starters. I can't imagine someone drafting Ty Simpson at the very top of this draft, but maybe at the end of the first round. Maybe those teams drafting at the beginning of the second round. Could they say, hey, we want to jump the Cardinals, jump the Jets, jump the Browns, trade into the bottom of the first round to get him? That's a scenario I could see. And in that case, the 5th-year option would still be in play.
And that's what Field Yates has in his latest mock. And to Mina's point, the word she used, ammunition. If the Jets do forego quarterback next month, they have 3 first-round picks next year. And to have the prime pick of that class, all you need is 1 of 4 things. The Colts, the Cowboys, or the Jets to stink, or 1 or 2 of those to struggle enough to package picks and get and vault into the top 3 to 5. The best way to stop a quarterback is just keep him from throwing the ball. Field Yates has been busy ranking his top 5 edge rushers in this year's class. Arvell Reese, Ruben Bain, David Bailey, top 3 on his board, all held pro days this week, and all 3 have spoken at length about why they think they're ready for the next level.
When you talk about each of these guys, they're special. Guys who have opportunities to change the face of some of these organizations and their cultures.
Fast and violent. So that's what I'll be thinking I'm lining up. Just play fast as I can and be as violent as possible.
If I'm taking a defensive player and I do not take David Bailey in that pick, then I'd really rethink my process in the draft.
I'm really service as a football player that I can become. feel like there's just so much stuff I can work on.
Like Mike Tyson, he wasn't the most tallest. He wasn't the tallest guy, or wasn't the longest limb guy. But when you felt him, you felt him. And you kept your distance.
So much debate about these edge rushers. Mina, when you look at this group, how much does one guy stand out over the rest?
One doesn't. It's not like last year where I thought it was very clear Abdul Carter was the best pass rusher. I think if you're a team looking to draft one of these guys, if you're the Jets, you're going to have your choice of them. Self-scouting is almost as important as scouting the players because they all bring such different attributes, and you have to ask yourself, what do we need? What is our timeline? What are we looking for? David Bailey, I believe, it gives you the most immediate pass rush juice. That's reflected in his productivity in college. Less advanced as a run defender, less skillful. Ruben Bain Jr., I think, gives you the highest floor where he is a very complete player. He is proven. And then Arvo Reese is the wild card because he might have the highest ceiling of them all in terms of his athletic tools. But as we know, he played more so off the ball. His pass rush production was limited. His pass rush usage was limited in college. So if you're the Jets and you're drafting him or any other team, you have to have a plan to use him in a hybrid role as he develops his pass rush tools. So I think for those teams who are looking at these pass rushers, it is very important that they ask, what is our plan? What do we need from them? And then you can pick, okay, which of these players' traits do we want the most for our team?
It's interesting you bring up the floor for Ruben Bain because, when you look at the type of player he was in terms of the production his entire time at Miami, it reminds me, I called a few Miami games early in his career. I remember talking to Jason Taylor on the sideline before the game his freshman year, and he's like, listen, you have no idea. This guy's a first-round draft pick. He's so good. And I'm like, really? He's 18 years old. And he's like, he's unbelievable. And, I do think there is something when you go to a program like Miami and you meet the expectations with the players that have been through there. He's an incredible football player, and the draft process sometimes can, highlight numbers that can start to bother some people. And so now, hey, it's his arm length, and it's, things like that. I just, at a position where there's a relatively high bust rate when you're talking about drafting defensive linemen, Bain's versatility, the fact that essentially he's kind of been tracked for this moment, I think makes him a very safe pick at a position that usually there's a decent amount of risk with.
I'm so intrigued by David Bailey and where he lands because the fit is going to have to matter here. As a pass rusher, just a pure pass rusher, David Bailey is the most refined and most impressive of these players. He can step right in and be a third down pass rusher for you. But this is now an NFL where we see the best defenses, the most impressive defenses, these Super Bowl winning defenses. They want to play with light boxes. They want to play with a nickel defender on the field 94% of the time, as the Seahawks did a year ago. And that means you have to have stout edges who can hold up against the run. We saw it the Seahawks last year. They added DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu was excellent for them, Boye Mafe was excellent for them. I wonder if David Bailey has the ability to make that kind of impact as a run defender, if he can hold up against all the gap scheme stuff, all the pulling linemen, all the sift blocks from fullbacks and tight ends. That is the question for me about him. As a pass rusher, no concerns at all. He's going to step right in and be productive. But you're going to have him probably at a team where you're comfortable playing your base defense and getting 3 linebackers on the field on early downs because you don't want to be playing light boxes with an edge rusher who might not have the ability to hold up early downs against the run.
And some numbers that support that point, Bill. Bailey tied for the FBS lead in sacks, led FBS in pressure percentage, but ranked 186th in run stop percentage, just 4% last season. Hey, we're not close to